What is up? Okay, you guys asked me to do a video on the detailing products that I use and why I use them. That was one of the questions that came across. I know it's a little windy. I got the generator running, unfortunately. I'm in a parking lot here, and there's nothing I can do about it, so it is what it is. So I have these panels here, these two here. I saved these two specifically for this demonstration. I'm only going to do one on camera because I figured, you know, once you get the gist of it, you'll know what I'm doing. So let me show you what I do. All right, I've angled the camera the best I could to show you this panel right here. Now this panel's not in bad shape. If you feel it, it's kind of, it feels a little rough. It's got some resistance to it. It's not very slippery. It's, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, it's got friction, okay? But it's in good shape. So using like an ultra cut compound, now this is what I used last year, or the year before last when I did the big detailing. It's also what I used on the upper half that I didn't do a couple years ago. And I used this with a rotary buffer. Now the high-speed rotary buffer is a commercial buffer. It is what most, well, back in the day, most professional detailers, auto body shops would use. Nowadays they use foam pads and what they call DA, dual action orbital type buffers, not the ones you get from Walmart. I have one of those here. This one here is pretty much a piece of junk. I got it at Walmart. It was like 30 bucks. But to do a quick application of wax and then put the cloth bonnet on it and take the wax off, it will save your hands. If you know, health reasons, whatever, if you're not physically able to remove wax by hand, use a machine, it's fine. But I don't get the same, you know, this is not going to solve all your problems in the beginning. This will help you maintain going forward, but it's not going to fix the paint if you bought an old RV that needed to be restored. What you're going to want is an orbital. Okay, now these orbital buffers, they have foam pads that are different color. Okay, this one has a black pad on it. That's a very soft finishing pad. This is a little more aggressive. You really can't tell the difference, but when you buy the pads, there's usually a chart that tells you the colors and what they're for. Black is usually polishing. Same thing with like green, yellow, blue. The red and stuff are a little more aggressive. If you were going to do compound, you would use a red. And they're Velcro. So they just stick on with the Velcro back. Now this machine here, this is just a high spec Amazon. This one was like 60 bucks and it came with a couple pads and the backing plate. They call it a DA because, see, it doesn't spin, it moves in an oscillating fashion. And that's the key. The key is as you're operating, you only want it to move back and forth a little bit, up and down, left to right, and rotation-wise, you only want it to sit there and move like this. You don't want it to be spinning, okay? Let's see here. I'll use the black. We're going to do it's not the compound, okay, because this is not in bad shape, so we're not going to use this. This is if you really need to do a severe, you know, blemishes, scratches, and things like that, you would use the compound. A lighter compound would be the Clear Coat Safe rubbing compound. This is just a standard compound. It's not the Ultra Cut. It's a little more liquid, and it's a little more forgiving. It's great to use with an orbital. Okay. As you can tell, I do like the Meguiar's products. I prefer, just for a annual, semi-annual, I use a cleaner wax. Okay, now this is slightly like a compound. It's got a little bit of a cleaner abrasive in it, but it's nowhere near what those other two products are, the other two compounds. This is a cleaner wax, and it will help take off your black marks, the black streaks, things like that, watermarks, acid rain, minor scuffs and things like that. This works very well, and that's what I'm going to use because this panel's in pretty good shape. I have a few blemishes here or there, but other than that, this would be perfect. We put product right on the pad, and then just put it on there. You don't want to turn the machine on right away. All you'll do is fling your wax all over the place. This stuff's not cheap, guys. This stuff's about $25, $30 a bottle for 32 ounces. And an RV my size uses a whole bottle. Then you keep your pad flat. You want your speed around 2 or 3 and work it in. Now you'll notice I use a left to right or right to left throughout the whole panel, well, the part that I'm working on, and then I go over it with an up and down. Now you can always add more of your cleaner wax. I'm running out here. These are my last 2 panels. And go over it again. But I don't think I need to. I'll work that in, and then I'm going to buff it out. You'll see. So now we got more material, more product. We put it on, and we'll do the second half. Now, when you put your buffer down, you never want to let this go on the ground. You don't want to get any sand or grit in here because all you'll do is scratch up your paint. So you always want to keep this clean and keep it out of off the ground. A good piece of cardboard or something to set it on is always a good idea. Okay, now that we've put the cleaner wax on, we let it blush, okay? We let it bloom a little bit to where it gets kind of like a white powdery look to it. One thing I can't stress enough is you don't want to do this in full sun, and you don't want to do it on a 100-degree day if you can help it, okay? Do it early in the morning when it's cool, and do it when you're out of the sun. If you noticed, I've parked the rig so that this side of the rig is in the shade, and then when I do the other side, I turn the rig and I do that side. So just wait until it blushes and give it the finger test. Now, you might say, what is the finger test? The finger test is if it smears, it's not dry. If it comes off pretty clean, it's dry. Now what this cleaner wax does, it also helps take out some of the swirl marks, any of the fine scratches from the actual rubbing compound. Remember, rubbing compound is more abrasive than the finishing compound or the cleaner wax. So one removes the other. It's kind of like if you're sanding wood, use like a 40 grit sandpaper, then do 120 grit. It's basically the same thing, but we're talking thousands of grit here. We're not talking, I mean, when you feel like 120 grit sandpaper, it's pretty aggressive. When you're talking compound, you're talking 1,500, 2,000 grit, okay? And then the cleaner wax is probably 3,000, 4,000 grit. So it's very, 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 you can't even feel the grit in your hands. It just feels like cream. All right, finger test. Looks pretty good. We'll see how we take it right off there. Now we're going to buff it out. Now to buff it out, I usually buff it by hand. And just wipe off I like to go in a circular motion. You know, get all the nooks and crannies. Put some elbow grease into it if you can. Now you can use the machine. Some people use a machine for everything. You know, I prefer to do it by hand. And even that cleaner wax, you could leave it there. You could be done right here, okay? You don't need to do anything else but what I just did. If your paint's in good shape, you're, pressed for time, whatever the case may be. The cleaner wax, this stuff here, it comes in paste form too, is a one step, okay? It cleans and it waxes. But it doesn't do both things perfectly, okay? The wax, yeah, you get a nice wax. It's very slippery now, but it's not very durable. If you want your shine to last, you have to go over this again with a true wax like I prefer. The professional high-tech yellow wax. Now this is the Meguiar's 26. Generally speaking, it's for hand polishing. But what I do with this is I put it on by hand, but I take it off with the machine. Let me show you. You have your basic applicator. I prefer the Terry microfiber applicator. And just rub in your wax. Again, use a little muscle here, people, if you can. Now, if you're using a liquid wax, you can use one of these foam bonnets and just apply the wax, a nice even coat over the whole thing if you prefer to do it that way. All you need is a very thin coating. Don't goop it on, just smear it. I mean, it very, very thin. You don't want to waste your wax. You don't want to waste your time putting so much on that it's hard to take off. I mean, we're talking about microscopic layer of wax. You're better off putting 2 light coats on than you are putting 1 heavy coat. I hope this wind isn't too much. You guys can understand me, at least muddle through it. I'll try to clean it up in post-processing. Now the same thing applies. As you can see, we got a nice thin coat of the Meguiar's yellow carnauba. Now this is a high-tech yellow carnauba wax. It is yellow carnauba with some polymers for durability, things like that. This is what protects your finish, okay? Now when it gets dirty or you get the black streaks in it, they're easier to remove because now there's a layer of wax in between the paint and that stain. So next time you wash it, those black streaks come off much easier. This step here, the waxing, should be done every year. Some people even do it twice a year. You're not going to hurt anything by putting on a nice coat of wax and buffing it out. Okay, now to remove the wax, I've put a microfiber bonnet over a clean foam pad. And now I'll go over, once it blushes, let it sit for a good couple minutes, 2-3 minutes to haze over. You don't want to remove wet wax. You want to remove a dry, powdery wax. Let the wax adhere to the surface. Now we gave it the finger test. It looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and remove the wax and buff this out to a nice shine. That looks amazing. That looks amazing already. Now all you're going to do now is take a nice clean microfiber and just hand wipe it. Any areas that you weren't able to get with the machine, you know, around your door locks, things like that, just buff it out nice. That's it, guys. Now we have our swirl marks taken out. We have the cleaner wax, took all that out. We put a nice coat of hard carnauba wax over the top. And then what I do is I take an old toothbrush, or it could be a new toothbrush, and I clean the wax out of the nooks and crannies. See, just out of the grooves there, you can actually see the white? You take that out. So I just go over it and I take all that out and then just give it a final dusting off. How about that, guys, huh? This rig looks beautiful, I gotta tell you. Every year, now last year I didn't do the compounding. I did it the year before, so I waited. Even the cleaner wax, I didn't do that last year either. This worked out great. I mean, every year the rig looks newer and newer. The paint is coming back. We're finally getting a good base of wax on there. You know, if I can get some of this white trim that's been, you know, molded and discolored, I'd like to replace that. But overall, every year my rig gets a little bit nicer and a little bit nicer. You know, you're trying to erase years of neglect, so makes me a proud papa. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope this helps you. Any questions, don't hesitate. Leave a comment down below. I try to get to all my comments. All right, guys, we'll talk to you soon. Take care.